Okay, in this question here, we're presented with a quadrilateral, which is a four-sided object, and a line through the middle here, diagonal, thus making two triangles. And what they've asked you is find the value of x. So x is this side here, and x is this side here, and they're both the same length, therefore this is an isosceles triangle. So I've got to make a little decision here. What method am I going to use to solve this value of x? And there's a triangle here, but x isn't contained in that, so I'm going to ignore that triangle there. However, the triangle here, x is contained twice, and we also have this length. I think that's going to be pretty useful. It's also a right angle triangle, so that's going to point a few possibilities my way. One possibility, if I know three sides of a triangle, and it's a right angle triangle, I can pursue the Theorem of Pythagoras. So I'm going to pursue the Theorem of Pythagoras with this particular question here, and there's three steps. Step one is label. Well, this side here, 12, it's opposite the 90, so I'm going to label that h, short for hypotenuse, thus meaning that these two sides here must be the opposite and the adjacent. And you can label them O and A, opposite and adjacent, or adjacent opposite, whichever you like. Okay, so the first part we've done, we are labelled, that's the hypotenuse, that's the opposite, and that's the adjacent, and we're going to use just this triangle here. Part two, I've got to select my formula, and the formula we mentioned was the Theorem of Pythagoras. So that's h squared equals O squared plus A squared. So that's done there. Part three is we're going to sub in. So we've got to sub in our values for each of these three. And the hypotenuse we can see is 12. So I'm going to write that as 12 squared. The opposite is x. So I'm going to put x in there, and that will be x squared. And the adjacent side, A, is x also. So I'm going to call that x squared also. So what we've done is we subbed 12 in for the hypotenuse, x in for O, and x in for A. So that brings us to our final step, which is solving. And solving means to figure out x. So let's work this out. 12 squared is 144, and x squared plus x squared is 2x squared. So we're doing great here. And when we solve, we want to isolate x. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2, and I get 72 equals x squared, so we're doing great here. And the final thing I need to deal with is this squared. And to eliminate a square, I square root. And I must do the same to both sides as we do in any equation. So the square root of 72 equals, and the square root of a square, they cancel each other out. It's just x. And I must simplify this. So what two numbers multiplied together to give you 72? 36 multiplied by 2 is 72. And that is a perfect square, and that is a prime number, and that is the combination that I want. And we put our perfect square first, our prime number second. So 72 is equal to 36 multiplied by 2, and the square root of 36 is 6, and 6 root 2 equals x, and that is the answer to x. So the length of this side is 6 root 2, and the length of this side is 6 root 2, and that is the question completed.